What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Tide Talk. It's Sunday, March 16th. We're here to talk RIFC's USL Championship season opener, in which they fell 2-0 to Charleston. Just a reminder, each episode is available on YouTube, and if you're watching now, please take a second to subscribe to our channel and click the like button on this video. You can also find us on your favorite podcast applications like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you listen on one of those, we'd really appreciate it if you took a minute to leave us a 5-star rating and a short review, as it helps more people find our podcast. One last plug, if you're not already, go check out the RIFC Club Collector app and enter the code TIDETALK25, all lowercase, all one word, to get an exclusive pack added to your collection today. So cozy up, Craig Bear.
Oh, God.
Let's dive into this one. I'm your host, Matt, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend Ryan, who just Guinness himself. I think he split the G right there. How's it going, Ryan?
It's going good. I mean, obviously been a tough day after a loss. I kind of forgot what these feel like, but good to be around some friends, family for a little St. Patrick's Day celebration, which is great.
Always good. I did my corned beef slow cooker meal today. It came out very good. All good stuff. But I guess we'll start off with the watch party, as the guild was packed. We did a little pregame content and went around asking some people some score predictions, and didn't even encompass half of what the guild looked like. Just a really fun night. It was, like I said, absolutely packed, standing room only. We picked up some guy in his pie on the way. The Tide Talk crew had some good pizza.
That was great by you.
But yeah, every now and then come up with
Listen, I think we showed up ready to play. We showed up ready. We had a good strategy. We had a good foundation, and I really thought that would carry Rhode Island FC through the night. I don't know if it worked out that way, but I genuinely thought you had the right strategy to start, and you had to. But it's figure itself out. It was a canned version of Guinness, so always a little different.
Yeah, like nitro pour type thing. Timmy wants the guy in his pie review because he's got FOMO. It was really good. Mr. and Mrs. Hands had split one. Mr. and Mrs. Healy split one, and Mr. and Mrs. Kerwin Quadro split one. As me and my good friend Andrew split a nice pie. Very good sauce. The sauce is really good from them.
Yeah.
So
definitely recommend it. I mean, it's nice. It's right in the Pawtucket area. You can pick one up on your way to the game, tailgate, or on your way to the guild. So
I would say it's the best Detroit style in the state. I know that's controversial based on some of the others, but Andrew says guy in his pie was fire. Timmy wants to know if the pepperonis were cupped. They were cupped.
Oh, yeah.
Cupped, and they were good.
Cupped and charred.
Well done.
Cupped and charred.
Yeah. Chef's kiss. All right. So, like I said, the Defiance party was absolutely popped. And, big shout out to everyone who traveled down. They made the trip. I know Timmy's still there right now. Yeah. If you look closely, you can see Timmy in some of the posts that the Defiance put out. You kind of have to pinch and zoom to find Timmy. He looks like he's kind of photoshopped in a couple of them. Not Timmy's best night on the camera, but he was on TV. I think he looked better when he made the broadcast than he did in some of the still photos. But shout out to our boy Timmy. You could check out player ratings. I know he was working on it this morning with what he called Jordan flu game symptoms. We just call it a good hangover, but be on the lookout for that for Timmy's blog to get going. Let's start with the lineup on this one, because I think this is kind of where a lot of the questions really came in. This is listed totally wrong. This is what Fop Mob had up, as well as the TV broadcast.
I thought that was so funny. Like, that threw people for an absolute loop. Like, people were like, dang, who's going to start? I was like, guys, he's not a striker. Like, let's relax. It's definitely not this. But both the broadcast and the people at the guild, everyone was like, oh my God, I can't believe this guy's going to play striker over JJ Williams. It was wild.
Absolutely wild. So you have to take this with a grain of salt. Basically, what this ended up playing out was Kozera at right wing back, Sanchez at left wing back, a back three of Nodarse, Yao, and Holstad. You had Ibarra, Okiosho in there in the midfield, and it was almost like a 3-4-2-1 with Noah and Maxi playing kind of dual tens, and Chico sitting a little bit higher and up on top. In possession. When Charleston had the ball, it was kind of like a 3-6-1. It kind of got a little muddy, I thought, and kind of clogged up in the middle, but a very interesting lineup. We did see JJ Williams, and we'll talk about the subs a little later on, make an appearance. We did see Grant Stillman make an appearance, so it kind of gives you the question of, were these guys on a minute restriction? If they're healthy enough to make the bench and get in, why weren't they healthy enough to start? Um, so just a lot of questions. We have questions for this one. So, Brian, your kind of thoughts on this lineup and how it shook out.
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, we could probably spend the entire episode on this screen alone. I think this ended up being kind of the core of the, like you said, the kind of further questions from the evening, and it really played out on the pitch as well. You know, I think one of the big things that we talked about with Tommy on our preview episode was because we had heard a lot of things about Stoneman potentially not being able to start. So who was going to play that center back role? We both had our head in our hands at one point in that episode saying, "Oh my God, it's going to be Clay." We nailed that,
Sure
but
enough.
I don't think any of us would have expected Temu to be the extra midfielder, especially with Zach Haraval on the bench. I also don't think any of us would have expected JJ Williams, of all people, to be on the bench as well. So I thought those were two really big calls. I said that in the preview video we did at the Guild, and quite frankly, it left me a little like nervous. I was actually feeling really confident going into the game, but once I saw the lineup, I was much more like, because I mean, it goes back to something we talked about a lot last year of like, of all the players on our team, who's the player you'd be most like frustrated, or you'd be a little more scared or nervous to play against? And to me, that's JJ Williams. So to leave him off the pitch, and then what we saw play out was a game plan that seemed like it would have really benefited JJ Williams, with a lot of like really good back post crosses going in. A lot of question marks. I think hindsight's always 2020, but a lot of question marks about both strategy and then who we deployed on the pitch to start.
Right. I know your line there of, we played JJ Williams ball without him on the pitch. Maxi put some great balls into the box, and I told you where else he could put those great balls while we were live at the Guild.
Quite frankly, one of the first things you said to me too, which I appreciated.
Yeah. So that one's on the Patreon, which we don't have. So if you want that line, you can pay extra. But Quizera on the right was a really interesting one because it really showcased how one-footed he is. Like,
Yep.
Brought me back to my Eric Lamela days. Like, the guy who refuses to kick the ball with his right foot. Like, just everything had to be cut in and input with the left. Clay being back there, obviously we don't like to see it, but I think he was our best center back on the night. He had that headed clearance right on the line. What was interesting to see was he picked up a lot of balls in the box and then drove forward and broke lines. And, you don't see that with Yao, Nodarse, or even Stoneman. So it was an interesting wrinkle. I would have liked to have seen, Temu kind of slot back when he did that and kind of give Clay more of an expensive freedom. But I guess that was definitely tactical. And actually looking at the FOTMob ratings right now, Clay did have the best algorithm score for center backs with a 6.8. So, interesting seeing him back there. It's not where we want to see him. Just kind of disappointing. I guess the other starter that I'll highlight was Maxi. I thought, like I said, Maxi was just a lot of fun to watch. Very, very animated and, fired up when calls didn't go the right way. So you can already kind of love that passion and really, want to see him do well. And I think he's going to be a fan favorite this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone at this point knows how excited I was when we signed him, and I think the thing too, like, he was excited about or animated about calls that didn't go our way, but he also was holding teammates accountable. Like, he was, a misplaced pass or someone who wasn't making the right rotation or, something going on. It was as if he's been here for 3, 4, or 5 years. Like, he was not afraid to say, "Hey, you should have been over here. Hey, that ball needs to go to feet. Hey, that ball should go over the top." And I think that's going to be interesting to see throughout the course of the season because, it's weird because Rhode Island FC has like these players who are, established players, but at the same time, the longest established player has been here for a year. So someone like him with so much experience and, leadership qualities, which we highlighted when we signed him, I think will be interesting to see as he grows into this, because I think we've talked about this a lot. One thing that's interesting with having, your goalkeeper be the captain is, usually that's more of a defender or midfielder that's kind of taking that role, who can kind of be more in the mix, talking to the ref. And I think we're going to see a lot of Maxi this year, kind of showing that experience and leadership in the middle of the pitch. So, on a tough night, I think he, at least with his attitude. And then we also did see a lot of beautiful plays from him. I thought he had a couple of balls that were, right close to being inch perfect. We easily could have went up 1-0 with a beautiful backstick cross to Noah. So yeah, was excited to see him out there, and I do think he, didn't maybe not lived up to the full hype, but was a strong player last night.
Right. You mentioned the leadership qualities. Worth noting, he was Detroit City's captain last season. So, I'm always a big proponent of having an outfield player wear the armband instead of the keeper. Like you mentioned, they're in the ref's ear more. They're there when, a ball is being spotted for a free kick and whatnot. So they're just a little bit more influential on the game. And, you can say what you want, but players can buy calls in any sport, and you have your captain there barking at every call. I think it does kind of change the way the referee might view things or might actually make some calls.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things we see with like Enzo Martinez in Birmingham. Like that guy's working the ref the absolute entire game, and I think it absolutely benefits them. Is that going to be the thing that's going to win you the championship? No, but I think throughout the course of a season, it's going to be a couple calls that goes your way.
Right. One note, and Don Lindbergh brings it up. Players were sliding all game on that slick pitch, and I know Don was at the game, so really cool to see him in the pictures and on the broadcast as well. It seemed like we struggled with that a lot more than they did. Obviously, probably being able to get in there and train on it a little bit more, but we had some timely slips and some bad spots, and it seemed like we were like the baby giraffes trying to walk for the first time.
It was weird. Like we were texting Timmy to be like, Timmy, we need a weather update, man. Like what's going on down there? And he was like, it's been beautiful all day. I don't get it. So I don't know what happened. I don't know if we didn't bring the right cleats or weren't able to change out studs, but yeah, it was like numerous times, especially I think, and this was a theme throughout the game in terms of like something we struggled with in general was progressing the ball from defense to our attack. And a lot of times our attack was running back to try to get back on the ball and would slip to get on it, and then we just were stuck in that space where the Charleston was just right back on us again. So hopefully we can sort that out because yeah, we're not playing at Tidewater for a bit, and we're going to be on the road and adjusting to all these different fields. So hopefully we can bring a couple extra boots for everybody and make sure that we're actually accustomed to whatever pitch we're playing on.
Right on. Before we get to the goals and kind of get to the gameplay a bit, obviously, in Kano we trust. He just signed the nice extension. But was this an experimentation gone wrong in your eyes? Obviously, I guess right now we don't have the full details of who was on a minutes restriction maybe, or who maybe was carrying some kind of a knock. But do you attribute it more to that, or do you attribute it more to a experiment gone wrong?
Yeah, I mean, so I was about to say the exact same thing of like we have no info on what was up with JJ, what was up with Haribo, what was going on. We don't know much about the preseason besides the beautiful pictures that we get to see. But for my RIFC in 3, just to skip ahead, mine was just play the best players. And it's tough seeing someone like a Zach Haribo, who I think really changed this team over the course of last season. Someone like a JJ Williams, who was just like a force of nature at the end of the year last year. So when you see both of them on the bench, and especially when things aren't going well, it's really easy to question the strategy, because I think any of us, novice fans would have said that JJ Williams needs to be on the pitch. I think we all had him in our club collector lineup before the match started. And yeah, to see him out and then to see him come on and play pretty damn well comparatively to what we were seeing in the first half, I think is an extra kind of question mark for Kano there.
Interesting tidbit here from Don. Amos said that most of the team didn't have metal studs in, so very interesting.
That's a type of like Big J at the pitch. Notice that Timmy didn't say that. So Timmy, what were you doing at the game? What were you doing?
Timmy was hiding under a banner for a picture. I think that kind of speaks to the fact that I thought we slid and slipped a lot more than they did.
Yeah. I can't recall them doing it. I remember we looked like we had some ice skates on at points.
Yep. Andrew Quadros brings up a pretty good point. Sucks that there won't be a home game to ask Kano post-match questions until May. Would have been great to ask about yesterday. Certainly, I'm on board with the mindset with you. Play the best players. This very much seemed like an experiment gone wrong. I think when a center back can make the bench and get subbed in, and Grant Stoneman, if they're healthy enough for that, I think they're healthy enough to at least get you, 60 minutes starting. I would have liked to have seen him start just because the midfield could have been a bit more expansive. The JJ one, obviously we know he started the season to carrying a big knock last year, but basically we've seen him in all those closed door scrimmage pictures. We've seen him kind of out there all the time, and That's a big piece to be missing. I'm not going to throw Kano under the bus on this one. It's game one. I
Yeah.
think, you know, I almost wonder if it was like, damn well that Charleston's going to give you their best shot after losing the first week. It's a get back game after losing the Eastern Conference Finals at home to RIFC. So, maybe he went with more of an experimental lineup to kind of see what he could do versus Phoenix. I know that's very optimistic and kind of sounds like
I'm usually the optimistic one here, and I hate that.
yeah. I don't like it. I don't like saying it, but you're kind of maybe looking ahead to Phoenix for that one, knowing that this is your first game too, and they had their first game against one of the beasts of the East too. So just interesting. I think when we all saw that lineup, we were all pretty confused. We were all, kind of what's going on here. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, I think the thing that's tough, like I kind of disagree on the Snowman thing, because there is a world where he only because we were questioning that he was even going to play until yesterday. Like there was reports that he was day to day or a game time decision. So when you see that, it's tough to put him in just in case. Hey, if he does go down 20 minutes in, all of a sudden that really screws up your game plan. Versus like bringing him in off the bench, you can kind of control for that. But I think not playing Haraval in the midfield, because I think he's the most analog to Clay, where they give you a lot more range and athleticism. So having both Temu and Ibarra, who, I think are Temu, we don't really know much about yet. Ibarra, I think we saw a bit last season, but they're not the most athletic, kind of rangy, covering a ton of the pitch. I think they're more players who do really well with their positioning and how they're kind of controlling the game via their possession and ball play. So I think not having Haraval out there for either Ibarra or Temu, I really question that, because I think we saw once Clay moved into midfield at the end of the game, once Stoneman came in, I think we saw a big boost to the team. And it was something that like we kind of could have replicated with Haraval if he was fit to play, which again, we don't know, but we don't have any reason to believe he wasn't.
Right. Ewan's got a pretty good take in here. To be fair, when RAFC subbed in their stars, Charleston subbed in their second string, and that kind of opened the game up.
Sure. And to be clear, we also were down 2-0 at that point, which again is
right.
a lot of game state. So
chasing it a little bit. I'll come back to that one, Ewan, and kind of my thoughts on that as far as when those subs were implemented and whether or not I think that's a good thing. Jason says coach is probably trying to work out all the questions he has in the lineups early in the season. At least that's just what I'm hoping. So this might be a process for a little bit, I'm thinking. That's a tough process.
I don't know. It's just like, why the first game?
Right. Matt Hans is a pretty good one in there. Temu seems like he could be covered for Ibarra.
He said should.
Like should be covered for Ibarra. I thought Temu was a passenger for much of this one. Really wasn't able to get in the game too much, really impact it on any level. I think, you look at Ibarra and Haraval in that midfield, and that's who's going to be soaking up a lot of those minutes.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things of like, this is probably, I mean, on your schedule, you're going to pick this one, Louisville, as the two like kind of crazier places to go play and try to get a win, and to put in a couple guys who, Temu was right out of college. Sanchez, he played a lot for Sacramento, but still really young. And it's just like, someone like a Haraval, who we just signed to a multi-year contract, is in his later 20s and has a ton of USL experience. I really think could have been just a better fit to start this game, bring Temu off the bench to seal it up or something like that. So yeah, I do have a ton of questions over this lineup. And again, to be fair, we did not see what happened in preseason. Temu might have been lightening it up every single preseason match, and it was a no-brainer for Kano, because we talked about this a lot, especially with the goalie situation last year. Like, the best thing a coach can do is reward what he's seeing on the pitch. And unfortunately, we aren't able to see what he was seeing on the pitch all off season. So that is my one caveat, but I really struggle, especially what we saw just a few months ago in the playoffs, not starting a Zachary Haraval and a JJ Williams.
No, right on. Definitely agree with you there. One interesting point, the FOP Mob had the official attendance listed at like 2,481, I believe. So for an Eastern match or Eastern Conference Finals rematch, I would have thought the Charleston fans would have showed up a bit more in full force. Like I said, I know we traveled well, and there was a good group of Defiance members out there. It was great seeing them on the broadcast. Funny how they put them in a section that does not make the camera and hides underneath. But
they learned the lesson in the playoffs. So
right, pretty low attendance. So would you say it was even less?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was saying they learned the lesson from the playoffs, putting us in that corner where it was like very visible. So yeah, It definitely. I mean, I didn't count, but 2,400 seemed like a lot as well. So
Right. So let's dive in to the action in the first goal where Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi Cal Jennings broke the deadlock
it sucks
early.
so bad that he's the one who got the brace because the Padawan joke was going to come back tonight, and I didn't dive deep into this after the preview episode, so I don't know. We'll play this one out, but yeah, he got 2, which sucks.
I might have to make a shitty Photoshop and throw him on the episode cover. I
You
think
should
that's
listen,
probably gonna
my
have
friend.
to happen.
Your Photoshop, your Canva work is A plus. So it's a honestly like good for Cal Jennings that he's going to get that beautiful artwork for himself.
Ewan says too many casuals in there, and Timmy says it was empty in there, and the fans who were there did not know or care what was happening on the pitch. So heavy words for the fans and supporters of the
Timmy's had a
Charleston
couple
Battery.
gin drinks and some barbecue today, and he's got fighting words. I love that for him.
He's got brisket juice dripping down his lips right now. It's awesome. But here's the first goal coming off the corner.
That's another Pieper Law Firm corner kick for the Battery. With in-swing from Torres. Went for the Olympico nearly. Falls to Jennings, and it's in! Cal Jennings off the mark for the Battery. 1-0.
We spoke about how Cano Smith had reinvigorated his defense or reinforced his defense with a number of defensive signings, but for some reason, after this first connection with the goalkeeper, everybody just freezes. Nobody really responds or reacts, and Cal Jennings is the first one to run. He's facing away. He does well to pivot and swing and get this shot off on target, but everybody in orange just freezes. Nobody reacts quickly to the ball, and Cal Jennings.
A lot of funny takes from that clip. The announcer calling us orange all night long. Certainly not a thing. There was a Fulham scarf in the crowd, so I think the casual shout's a pretty good one there. We look at Karifa Yao guarding Koke on that one. That was kind of my biggest gripe with it. Yao was boxing out Koke and keeping him on his line, to which Koke obviously did not command his box. He didn't come off the line at all, but I think Yao had a lot to do with that as he kind of backed into him. I know when we saw this one live, you were kind of like, oof, that's on Maxi. I don't think it was. You had Yao. I think even Clay was marking no one, marking space. But I think Yao's impact on Koke, whether or not Koke would have come off his line on that one, was pretty impactful.
Well, I think so. I originally I know I said Maxi at live, but since watching this again, I actually thought Koke. I was like a little like I don't know if he's gonna look good, especially with these two corners. But yeah, but afterwards, like the announcer said it, and Quadro says it perfectly in the chat. Like literally, everyone just froze. Like no one did anything. Like Maxi's there, Clay's there, Yao's there. Like just one person needs to just step up 2 steps and try to just get a foot on it. And just Cal Jennings has a step there. I actually don't. So Koke did parry it right away after being boxed out by Yao, and I don't know if there was much more he could have done in that specific moment. And then from there, he's just fighting through a crowd, and I think there was significantly more players, just honestly like a collective level, that just like no one stepped up, no one just gets
a lot of ball watching.
A lot of ball watch. Perfect point. A lot of ball watching from multiple players who any single one of them could have at least put a foot out to deflect that. So I think it's just a bad team goal. And quite frankly, what's scary about it is if we remember the beginning of last season, like we were awful defending corners to start the season, and to see this kind of pop up again, twice one game could have been a fluke, but easy way for teams to get at us, especially when we're playing well, have good structure in the open play. And you just hope this isn't a theme going into the season again, because it's something I thought worked out last year, and don't want to see it rear its ugly head.
Right. Sarah wants to know if they pull the braid after he scores. He kind of gave a weird butt wipe motion. So
what sucks about it too? He looked like he was having so much fun scoring those goals. Like both his celebrations, just like pure joy. And it's like, damn it. Like, he didn't even look like he worked hard. He was just like having fun.
Jason throws in modest Koke. We got JDT's delivery was elite from Matt Hands.
I will give him credit. Those were 2 spot. I mean, we'll get to the second goal too, but both of those deliveries were like super dangerous. Right. Super dangerous.
We have Timmy saying, in my opinion, Maxi was marking Jennings pretty well and is least guilty. I think there's a lot of things that happened before. I think he kind of covers up for whatever else goes there. But Timmy goes on to identify himself like Ryan as a confirmed Maxi simp.
Well, I was just saying Maxi was involved because I didn't want to be like fully there, but I mean I already am. So
Right. To your point, Andrew added in last year we struggled with the set pieces. Here we go again. And Don says spot on, Andrew. So he agrees with you there as well, Ryan. But I
I love
guess
when the chat's agreeing with the chat. They don't even listen to us. They're just having
popping
fun
off,
there.
man. They're just having fun in the chat. Like I know you enjoyed being in the chat a couple weeks ago. So
I'll be honest, I had more fun probably doing that than this. Like, let's be real.
I guess
these keyboard fingers here.
That's it. We didn't really mention it, but the first 10 minutes, that goal came in the 15th minute, but we looked pretty sharp in the first 10. I thought we looked the most likely. We kind of went down the first couple times. We had, I think Quizera played a beautiful ball into the back post. We had Maxi kind of pinging in some balls in the box, but we looked really well. And then all of a sudden it was like, Charleston got on the ball a bit more, got those set pieces, and like I said, like the chat said, like you said, it looked a lot like last year. Hopefully we see the same shift, because last year we saw us concede on every corner to scoring on every corner. That was kind of the trend. So maybe
Frank's time to shine is coming way earlier this season. We're just getting all those goals in now, and then Frank's just coming up next week.
He's giving up those goals now so that he can head in a couple on Matt Hand's presenting the paddle day at the opening game at Tidewater.
Listen, if that's even 10% true, I don't want to say I'm for it, but I don't mind it.
Just don't want to bleed too much before that.
Yes.
Right. But the second goal came for Charleston 22 minutes after that in the 37th. And it was that Padawan learner again, Cal Jennings, almost a carbon copy on the set piece. It wasn't on a rebound this time, just another beautiful ball delivered in. And Cal was able to get it. But Timmy throws in Frank's time to shine. Let's see that second goal. Thank you for the segue, Mr. Sclafani.
The budding set piece specialist having his locker. Another peach, and it winds up in. Jennings wheeling away in celebration, and it's 2 for Charleston.
He's giving Jennings a hard time for not getting the ball out his feet and getting a strike off on target with the initial opportunity, but he goes and puts amends to it by getting himself on the score sheet from this. Does he get himself? Well, he's claiming it. But it's a great delivery here from Torres. Whipped over the first man in near post area. And I think it is Jennings right there to guide it into the back of the net. For Rhode Island, that's 2 corner kicks, 2 set piece deliveries, 2 goals conceded. Cano Smith will be devastated, frustrated at his team lacking concentration in those key moments.
So we got the extended golazo cut there, but want to thank Timmy for putting the barbecue sauce down for a second and licking his fingers to get us that great segue in there. Clay was supposed to be marking Jennings on that one, like Matt Hand says. Jason's got the puke emoji. Clay's one of our, if not our best athlete, as everyone wanted him on their basketball team, as shown by that clip. I think the first goal was Karifa Yao trying to box out and get picked on more people's teams, but Clay got absolutely bullied by Jennings on that and thrown into that near post and into the net. I've watched it, like I probably watched this goal 15-20 times, and I still don't see where he goes down or how he goes down. It's just kind of lost in the bodies, but an interesting kind of lead up to that goal.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that stands out to me, which the chat is getting on there, imagine being 6'4" and ducking on a corner kick when you're the near post. I mean, I don't know how Frank doesn't go for that. That was wild. That was genuinely wild. I do think Frank probably, I mean, not Frank, Clay, I am assuming gets completely bodied by Cal to get in there, but holy moly, Frank, put your hand on Paul, my man.
We got 100% Frank ducked.
There's a true like blood war happening in the chat right now.
I love it. Matt Hands and Ryan when it comes to defending their favorite players.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
That is good stuff. But Frank definitely ducks on that one. It wasn't his man, so to Matt, we'll give him that credit. But I think he could have prevented that ball from even getting anywhere near there.
Like, sorry, Matt, but like, who was his man? He didn't have a man. He was near post, and near post means get that ball the hell out of there.
Right. So I think the biggest thing that we talked about, obviously the first half ends with it going into the half down 2-0, and those first half stats were pretty split pretty evenly as far as possession and all of that. But the biggest thing that we saw that we talked about, the easiest fix would have been to bring JJ on. I think the easiest thing would have been get JJ on for Sanchez, move Quizera back out left, put Noah at right wing back, and then bring on Haraval for Temu. And it kind of would have shored things up, brought in some of that veteran presence. But we didn't see that. So we saw the subs come in much later. Haraval and JJ were the first ones on, both in the 57th. And Stoneman came on in the 84th Stoneman the 70th, and then Amos and Brito in the 78th. I thought the first subs came a little too late. I would have liked to have seen 2 halftime subs. We go 12 minutes into the second half and not really much changed. We couldn't really get anything going. We couldn't really establish any more possession. But for me, the subs came too late. They needed to come earlier. So when I said part of this was experiment gone wrong, I include that as part of it. I think the game had a very telling, change or easy fix to it, and it wasn't made. Like we said earlier in preface with, we have no idea what may have gone on behind the scenes to that, but it sure looked like if they can come in and play over a half an hour, they probably could have played 45 as well.
Yeah, I mean, it just felt like doubling down on a bad decision to start with. Like I don't think there was anything in the first half to show you that like this was the team that's going to claw it back for you. So I think just waiting for the Sabs, and quite frankly, it's something that we talked about a lot with Kana last year. And I think a lot of it we chalked up to, hey, it's first time manager. It's someone who's trying to figure it out, but his subs were something that we talked about a lot last year. And a lot of times a negative slight. I do think he got better over the course of the season with those, but tonight it felt like he was just kind of hoping, like kind of throwing things on, hoping it would work, hoping it would change the game. And it was also, again, something I've criticized him with in the past, where it was a lot of chopping and changing where like you make one sub, but multiple players have to move around to accommodate that sub. And I just think, like you said, there was a few in there that felt really natural to the players and kind of what we've seen of this team in the past. So, again, maybe this is part of the experiment. Maybe this is doubling down on something he wanted to try, but it just felt like nothing he tried worked last night. And listen, that's going to happen sometimes, but I struggle to see kind of what the plan was and what was the plan B at any point.
Right on. I think a lot of people are kind of hinting at it in the chat as well, that the body language really slipped and changed after the second goal, and that was kind of a big factor. So why not take a chance, and why not get those subs on at halftime and really kind of change things up? Like Kevin says, unacceptable. Sorry, clicked the wrong one. Unacceptable not coming out with the new starting lineup at half. At least making those 2 subs that we mentioned would have been a pretty easy fix and kind of allow you to keep your shape, keep your formation, and get a real goal scoring threat on the pitch as well.
Well, I think at the Guild, I literally went to get a beer at halftime. We talked about, we're like, oh, he's obviously going to make some change. Went to get a beer, waiting in the line, came back, the lineup came, like the half started, and I was like, cool, who came on? And everyone was like, nobody. I was like, wait, what? Yeah, it was just like, it was almost so obvious it was surprising.
Mm-hmm. So really would have loved to see that. I think it was too little too late with the subs. Somebody brought up in the chat earlier about how, we were subbing on kind of some of our stars or regular players versus their second string. But could have done that a little earlier. Could have gotten some fresher legs on earlier, and I think had more of an impact with those subs.
Well, I think that's the thing that's crazy, right? Like I mentioned to start this episode, like it seemed like we were playing a JJ game without JJ on the pitch. First half, he went 7 crosses, only 1 connected. Second half, we went 7 for 9 on crosses. Obviously, we didn't score, but it's just like there was something there, and it's just frustrating that we just never took advantage of it. We also had a game plan. We talked about it in the Charleston preview episode with Tommy, but like when we played them really well, we did a really good job cutting off Malloy, having really good kind of like structured press. I didn't feel like that was in place last night. And I think, quite frankly, like just looking at this game as a whole, we during our away end episodes, for those of you who haven't seen one before, we talk about if the game's going to not go well for RIFC, what happened. And I think both of our scenarios happened at the same time. Mine was we go down a couple goals early and we can't claw it back. Yours was we couldn't connect midfield to attack. And I think both of those happened all game last night. We got obviously go down with those 2 corners, but I really felt like there was something missing. Like the ball would get up to our attackers. There was no hold up ability from our attack, but there also just was like, they was outnumbered. Like there was nothing they really could do. There was never a point where we had a numerical advantage, except like, I think 2 times I can really think about. So just, yeah, it's always tough when you watch a game and it seems like the other team has an extra player on the pitch.
Right.
And I felt that way last night. We were like, do they have 12? Like, I know that the ref has let that happen before. So like, what's going on there?
Right. Timmy says, shout out to Dump Truck Karifiao for his 7-on-7 on aerial duels. That's a good stat bomb. Remember that when you do your match ratings, Timmy. I see a 7 incoming. But you mentioned the extra man in the midfield, and you have to credit Charleston with that. I thought their press was extremely well. It was high and it was flying for pretty much the whole night. So you do have to credit them for what they put on there.
No, so yeah, absolutely. I just think like it just felt like our defense would have the ball, they would press us, and there was just no options available. And that's where, like, again, someone like a Haribow could have really helped cover that area, make himself available to then connect to the pitch. Because I thought we were doing some interesting stuff with Noah and Maxi, which I would like to see play out more. Kind of having them as dual 10s instead of like Noah as the striker with Maxi behind. So I do think there was some ideas that are going to be interesting there. And obviously Charleston away is a tough opponent, like no matter when it is in the schedule. But, first match of the year with some new faces is going to be tough. But at the same time, I don't think we showed our best hand last night.
No, for sure. I think we can definitely see a lot better. We can see a lot better link up. We can see a lot better, subs being made. There's a lot to improve on this one. When we get to match stats, final stats include 52% for RIFC for possession. Both teams had 11 total shots, 5 on target for the battery to just 2 for RIFC. 4 big chances for Charleston, 0 for RIFC. 3 big chances missed for them, 0 for us. Charleston completed 325 passes at 81% to Rhode Island FC's 356 at 80. Both teams committed 13 fouls, 5 corners for Charleston, 4 for RAFC. So just kind of a pretty even stat match, but we were by far by far the less threatening team. In my opinion.
I would say at the same time, like Charleston had, I think the Clay header offline obviously is huge, but the only other big chances they had from my memory is like those 2 corners. So I don't think it was some game where we got run over or we were like completely outplayed. I just think we just like couldn't put it together. We couldn't match that. And then to give up 2 silly corner kick goals, I think just you're going to always struggle to win when you're giving up stuff like that.
Right on. We'll hit some of those socials and we'll start.
Andrew, great point. I didn't do the math, but the field tilt, scratch the score line. Like, what was that? That's the most important. But
I'll read through some of the socials if you want to dig it out, Ryan.
I'm not doing math. Too many Guinness today.
Our friend Kevin at Fluffy Cog Bar on Twitter had bad starting 11 / clear your lines as his RIFC in 3. Jason Demers had 2. That was tough. And please start JJ, both of which we can definitely agree with. Leo O on the Defiant 1636 Discord had slipping, stumbling, staring. Tyler Hatch had rotating week 1 ? Tyler had bad first impression. Ryan then commented, damn, these are all so much better than what I had. Andrew Quadros had this wasn't preseason. Somebody might come at him for stealing that take, although that was put out pretty late last night. Tim Sheldon had Jennings signing paid off. Natesky said no chemistry yet. Taris said not good enough. Hands had disjointed makeshift 11. Andrew Hill had Clay was everywhere. Raphael had I like turtles. And then Leo came in with a question. Was our midfield being tasked with too much, Ryan? They seemed stretched thin for most of the game till Zach and Clay were moved into the midfield trio. It kind of reminded me of how the midfield was in the championship final. And I know that was a point you mentioned in the opening.
Yeah, listen, we talked, and I think with bringing in Maxi, the midfield was probably the biggest thing that we talked about of like what we're going to do with the midfield. We wrote an entire multi-person blog about like what are we going to do about this midfield, and then we see kind of this random, very very random midfield, one that we didn't even think was possible that came into play. And I think both the way it was deployed, but also just the spacing. I think with the inability for us to hold the ball up, the midfield can kind of never get set. I think we saw Teemu kind of really sitting a lot versus kind of roaming and being expansive. And I think the thing that we also talked a lot about with like why we looked so good in Charleston, the championship was, or East Conference championship, was like we were just so much more athletic than them. And I think we basically took all our athletes out of the midfield, which really made it look really disjointed, where our athleticism covers a lot of those grounds, the ground there. So, yeah. And then again, the inability, both, again, I just mentioned offensively, not able to hold it up. But I also think our wing backs, like Quizera on the right, not supernatural for him to be able to kind of hold the ball there and keep it. Sanchez, I don't think did the best job at that either. So there's just a lot that we weren't able to deal with and like kind of give the midfield the ability to actually have structure, hang in there, and show their best foot forward. I mean, listen, everyone's coming at me in the chat that I'm only backing my best players. I mean, a stat that I saw before this is my guy Noah, least touches of any player who played 90. I mean, I don't think he was showing enough all game, either holding the ball up or just getting people involved. So, because he becomes part of that midfield kind of four in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of words to say, like, I just don't think we put our best foot forward in the midfield. We didn't give them a chance to do that, but I don't think we had our best, the people out there to make it happen.
Right on. You know, I know you mentioned it. It was my concern about what would go wrong for us to lose this.
Yeah.
We couldn't link up.
I mean, you look real good in retrospect on that.
Not good. The only thing I look good at is I think it was the limited. I won the limited card collector.
I got mopped up in club collector last night. So you guys should just turn the podcast off. You're not getting anything from over here.
I took home a first place in limited, and I believe I was top 10 in the rare. But I know our boy Timmy was second. So,
well, my favorite was
first time he's ever been semi-successful,
which means it was a fluke. So you guys everyone should just give me all theirs because, yeah, if Timmy's top in the charts, it's not good for any of you.
That's it. But you know, my big question was, would we be able to link up? And you know, I think that was more of just kind of like a reps question, basically. But I can understand why that didn't happen without having JJ on the pitch for so long.
Well, I mean, just looking back at this game, it's just like if you replace Chico with JJ, I am fascinated to see what happens, because seeing Noah and Maxi run off JJ, just it to me just like hypothetically feels so much more of like a obvious like, oh, that's gonna work versus a Noah Chico or with Maxi Chico pairing up there. It's something I just want to see at some point in the season, because it just feels like it's like, oh wow, JJ Williams with some like really creative, interesting attackers around him, and then you have kind of flanked by a Quizera and others. So I just think there's, again, we've talked about it a lot. Like Cano's gonna have a lot to play with this year. He has a lot of versatile players, but I just can't see the merit for starting Chico over JJ in this one.
No, for sure. You know, there's going to be a lot of experimenting just because there's a lot of good players in this squad. I think the one thing we all kind of looked at, and you going back to your comments on the midfield and looking what that would look like, was that we all kind of expected Ibarra or Hervao to kind of take a back seat. And I think a lot of us kind of leaned Ibarra maybe coming off the bench, but to see, you know, Teemu go right in with the start, I think was really interesting. So to kind of see what that balance is going to look like, obviously it's a little bit different not having Clay in that rotation. I think he's the real linchpin of the midfield that, you know, Clay tracks back, he defends well, and he links the attack and breaks lines well. So when you have that guy in your back line versus the middle of the pitch, I think it kind of stifles what you can do offensively going forward. So it's just going to be interesting once the back line gets fully healthy and we're able to see who can come in and really make some changes into that midfield. But next up, we stay on the West Coast. We stay away, or we go to the West Coast, I'm sorry, stay away against the Phoenix Rising, who are fresh off a 4-4 draw.
That's wild.
Just an absolute wild match versus El Paso. And then lost their first game at home 0-1 to FC Tulsa. We'll try to do our best to get a preview episode and a weigh-in episode out by Wednesday or Thursday of this week. We'll also have some preview blogs out there as well. But when we have Brett on, Brett looks at this one as a derby. It's his old club who he helped found. He was never principal owner like he is for RIFC. So he's you know, pretty excited about that one and really wants to get a win. But Any early fixes or what you want to see kind of going into this one?
I think going back to my RIFC in 3, just play the best players, which I know
Mm-hmm.
is someone already made fun of me for this. That's 4, but play best players. There you go. I just would like to see us kind of go back to the. It's not even back to the drawing board. It's just back to what we've seen work. There's a history with this team at this point, and again, I like that Kano seems to be someone who's going to reward the guys who are either training really well or playing really well in these preseason games. But at this point, unless there's a health thing that we don't know about, and to be clear, there definitely could be. It just seems kind of like you're shooting yourself in the foot to not play a JJ Williams or a Zachary Harabow in these games.
Right on. Jason brings up a really good point in the chat. I think
Yep.
Clay's versatility is a double-edged sword because he's not being used where he's most effective all the time, and can totally see that. I called him the Swiss Army knife of the team on the last episode, and that does come with his some gifts and some curses, as you can kind of get slid into center back at times where he should really be in the midfield at all costs. But just to kind of cover and fill a position, he's able to do it, and to keep him on the pitch, why not do it?
Yeah, it just again though, it's just if Clay is not gonna be in midfield, I think Harabow has to be in there because he's the only analog that can just cover the ground that Clay covers. I don't think they're exactly the same, but I just don't think having a Ibarra Temu midfield moving forward with Clay in the back line is helpful. I mean, hopefully Stoneman's just healthy and that alleviates that problem. But yeah, the midfield I think is gonna be an interesting question all season. The strike partnership is going to be an interesting question all season. We'll plug the blogs that Tide Talk did about trying to kind of suss these things out. But yeah, Kano has a lot of decisions to make. And unfortunately, that can almost hurt you in a way because it may there's a lot of times you can make the wrong decision. And I just hope that we find some kind of groove where we understand these are at least the components we're looking for in these positions. And we make sure we're covered in those ways with, if Clay can't be there, we have Harabow. If Ibarra can't be there, Temu's in there. And we understand what the chemistry of a midfield looks like that can be successful in the system.
Mm-hmm. Andrew's got a pretty good take on that as well. I don't mind rotation and experimentation, especially against Western Conference teams. But after last night's, we need to go with the strongest group and adjust from there. I like it. And I think Phoenix is one it's definitely there for the taking. So would really like to see a stronger 11 start the match.
Yeah, my only thing I almost struggle with thinking that Kano was I'm gonna experiment with this game. I just can't fathom that he was Charleston away first match of the season is the one to do this with. It's not a USL Cup, it's not Jägermeister Cup, so I just can't. I'm assuming there has to be something we just don't know about either JJ or Harabow there. But yeah, the experimentation is a fair shout, but I really hope it wasn't him being let's see what happens and I don't care. Not that I don't think he didn't care with the experimentation, but the word experimentation makes me feel like it's almost like a partial throwaway game, which I just can't see him doing for this one.
No. Sarah brings up a great point that only she could say and so eloquently, like she said at the Guild. Also, the ref sucked. She was not good. She was very not good. She was the one that had the controversial Las Vegas playoff game last season too. I was so confused because her whistle was yellow. So every time she talked to a player, I thought she was booking someone. I'm like, why does she have a card in her hand for that? It really confused the crap out of me. But I think it's the normal standard of the USL championship.
I was gonna say in her defense, we've seen so much worse.
Right.
I can't think of anything particular she did. I just remember her being like, oh, this just isn't going the way we in terms of oh, that was a weird call. That was a weird call. Actually, one thing we didn't talk about was that first corner that they scored on. I don't actually think was a corner.
No, it wasn't. It
was not a corner. Our team was
was very big on that.
Yeah, right now, let's see. Yao was just standing there are you serious? So, again, I don't think we deserved anything out of this game, but when calls like that are happening, it's just kind of you still do have to go defend the corner and all that, but it still is a chance you're giving the other team, which
it's one call that I think at the world soccer level it's called wrong often more times as it is called correctly, whether it's the Premier League, the Bundesliga, Serie A. The amount of times goal kick versus corner kick, is screwed up is like exponential. And I almost think like they need to like add that to the goal line technology watch of like corner, or like, because it's just wrong so many times, and it's so obviously wrong.
Well, usually
It's
the
frustrating.
linesman isn't in the right spot, and then the ref
Right.
is just like the center ref is just way out in the boonies, like trying to call that shot, and then like the linesman just like is way up trying to be the last defender. It's just not good.
Yeah, but we're gonna see a lot worse throughout this season as far as the USL Championship officials
Have we looked
go.
if our guy Sergey is on the match list
Oh
yet?
my God, that guy Sergey. He does have a club collector card, right?
Yeah. Oh, he sure does. I have multiple of them. If anyone would like to trade, so
I would love the wicked rare of that one. That guy Sergey.
love to get in touch with Craig. I feel like he can hook you up on that one.
That's it. All right, Ryan. Any final thoughts on this one, or looking ahead to Phoenix?
Yeah, I mean, we know that this run of games, we have 6 on the road before we have this a long stretch of home ones is going to be tough, but hopefully the team can kind of course correct this next one, find something that works and stick to it there. There was a couple things I think we can build on in this game in terms of some of the ways that we attack Charleston. Obviously Phoenix is a very different beast, but again, let's clean up the set pieces. Let's focus on getting the attack and midfield and defense connected again, and hopefully we can set the record straight, whether it's a draw or a win. Hopefully you win and kind of start to build some momentum leading into that home game.
Really need to see Quizera on the left side for me.
100%.
In this Phoenix match. I think
the wing back being inverted is horrible. Like
it just doesn't suit his game because of that one-footedness, because he's got to cut in and he just can't do it. So like
you're
Jason
hugging
says,
the touchline so badly in that position. Like it just handicaps you so bad.
Let's get the correct starting lineup. Let's get
Jason,
JJ in there.
Incredible point. I don't know. It's a little wild idea, but maybe.
Play your best players.
Play the best players, man. That's all it is, Kano.
All right. So if you're still with us, please take a second to hit the thumbs up on this video. Give us a like, help it get a little more play. Thank you for everyone who tuned in and, responded to our social media posts after each match. We typically put out a score post asking for questions along with RIFC and 3, getting your 3-word take on the performance. So we love to see how creative you guys get with this one. Mine was, we have questions. We have questions. There are a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, one thing too, just I think you talked about in the beginning, but it was so great seeing everyone last night. Like, it's a long off season for both the players and us, and there's so many people that we don't see as often in the off season. So, starting getting the rhythm of seeing people, Nate Ski's yelling RIFC, you're seeing just all the people at the guild that we talk with virtually every day, but seeing them in person was awesome. Right. So that definitely was the highlight of the night, and shout out to you all. That was awesome.
Like Don says, up the tide. Night, everyone. I will say it was always good talking to my good friend Logan. Talked to him at the bar for a bit, but I send out my
having a tough 24 hours.
Send out my condolences.
Yeah. Sorry, Logan. Not really, but yeah.
Yeah, that's it. But that'll wrap things up for this one. Remember, Tide Talk is more than just a podcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for daily social media content. Click that link in this episode description to follow all of our accounts. I've been your host, Matt, for my good friend Ryan. Thanks again for joining. We'll see you next time. And as always, up the tide.
Up the tide.